the blanks, highlight incorrect word and write from dictation. In real exam, there is negative marking on highlight incorrect word and multiple choice. Choose multiple answer.
I think there is an intense competition at the moment to hire the most talented and most intellectually able people. There is a time when I think companies have many of the adventures in the world. That involves the company's world. It was the boss's world. Now I think it reverses the case. We have a shortage in talent base within countries and between countries, have an intense battle between companies to hire the most talented workers, and also between countries which are looking to recruit talented young people, talented young immigrants. We have this sense of immigrants being things that countries are battled to keep out, and immigrants want to get in. Climb of the walls. I think the opposite. Isn't that the case? And the topic is that countries are trying to lure bright young people to get them to go to universities and get them to become immigrants. So, on many levels, talent is a premium. There is a shortage of talent, and so countries, companies, all sorts of organizations, of course, volunteer organizations as well, are competing to hire the best and the brightest. You know, we have a baby boom population which is aging. We have an economy which is becoming more sophisticated. And so, for all those sorts of reasons, talent is a premium. The debt today is so high, it's 200,000 rupees, 300,000 rupees of peasants who have no capital. They who know within a year or two when they accumulate that kind of debt. Where is the debt coming from? It's coming from a seed that is costing 100,000 to 200,000 rupees per kilogram, depending on what you have. Seeds that used to be free used to be theirs. Pesticides each time, the more they use, the more they have to use. 12 sprays, 15 sprays, 20 sprays. Pesticides used in just the last 5 years in the land areas of India have shown up by 2,000%. That's why the free market and globalization have brought, and since we are talking about peasants who have no money, who have no capital, they can only buy expensive seeds and expensive pesticides by borrowing. And who will lend that money? The seed companies sell the pesticides, which are the same companies that sell the seeds, as you know, are now also the major creditors.
Now let's talk video. Video and audio as a tool for mobile. And here's the thing. It also works beautifully for social media and web too. You kill 3 birds with 1 stone. Do you know why TV does so well and films do so well? It's a really easy answer. We humans react best to seeing pictures of other humans talking back to us and playing all these stories and whatnot. Yet you'll find that most of the web is text. Yet when I have a 4-minute video, it does better, or when I have a slideshow that has an audio track to it, they do so much better than all my other content because we need that. This is a flat screen. We need to liven it up somehow. This is a small screen. It's not easy to read lengthy text, but if I create a lengthy article and then I create a 3-minute video or a set of 3-minute videos about it, then I've now just repurposed and I have something to use. I have differentiated from all my competitors, and I use a fancy QR code to link to these. Oh my God, we're innovating at the speed of, okay.
Both the rotation of the moon and its revolution around Earth takes 27 days, 7 hours, and 43 minutes to be exact. Because of this motion, the moon appears to move about 13 degrees against the stars each day, or about half of a degree per hour. If you watch the moon over the course of several hours one night, you will notice that its position among the stars will change by a few degrees. The changing position of the moon with respect to the sun leads to lunar phases.
Today we're going to talk some more about architecture and what makes for a good design. There are, of course, a whole range of qualities that most architects would like their buildings to possess. One of these is the durability of the building. Architects must consider how well the building will stand up to the ravages of climate and time. Will it remain robust and in good condition? Clearly, requirements will vary according to the surroundings of the building in question. A design that is suitable for Dubai will have different needs from one for Moscow. Then, of course, it's essential to consider the appearance of the building. Regardless of what its purpose may be, will people find pleasure in looking at it? An original and still respected writer on architecture, the Roman Vitruvius, wrote in the 1st century that a building should delight people and should raise their spirits. Again, tastes may vary from one society to the next, but the principle remains the same.
The heyday of the English landscape garden was the 18th century, and it stood for many things. The appreciation of natural beauty, of course, but also the idea of a civilized life, good taste, one's personal philosophy, and one's social status. Gardens also, though it is hard for us to credit, became expressions of their owners' political affiliations. Until the picturesque style emerged as part and parcel of the Romantic movement, gardens had been strictly formal, laid out with mathematical precision following the Italian and French examples. There then came a backlash against this rigid formality, led by, among others, the poet Alexander Pope. Pope and his allies argued for a more natural nature. Lord Burlington was a major figure in the landscape garden movement, and he was famously influenced by his love of the Italian architect Andrea Palladio, along with the picturesque or romanticized landscapes of Italian classical painting. With these in mind, he scattered his gardens and parks with classical Greek and Roman temples and statues. In other words, he wanted to make the garden look like those paintings.
You've all probably heard about zoning laws, but many people are confused about what they are. So I'd like to cover them now. Local governments such as cities and counties typically pass zoning laws. They regulate how people use the land in certain parts of the city or country. Think about our city for a moment. It's divided into various districts. Some are commercial while others are residential. This isn't accidental. It's intentional. The city developed this way because of zoning laws. You see, in the commercial district, there are businesses. And in the residential district, there are houses and apartments. You can't open a factory in the residential district, and you can't erect an apartment building in the commercial district. You can't do these things because of zoning laws. There are actually quite a number of zones. As I just stated, there are residential and commercial zones. There are also industrial, agricultural, and recreational zones. Industrial zones are for factories and other manufacturers. Agricultural zones are for farms, and recreational zones are for parks, lakes, and sporting facilities. So why do we need these zones? Well, think of it like this. Would you like a factory located right next to your house? How about a huge farm next to the shopping mall downtown? Or what about a big warehouse with lots of trucks next to the park? Yeah, that's what I thought. And that's why we have zoning laws. They keep various buildings or businesses out of places where they don't belong.
Stanford University.
We all get depressed. Bad stuff happens to us. We all get depressed. We feel lousy. We feel withdrawn. We feel sort of a sense of grief, and we're not taking much pleasure, and we withdraw. And then we get better. We cope. We heal. We deal with things in life. What's the deal with you that you can't do that? And there's this lurking sense given that all of us have periods of being depressed and come out the other end. When you look at people who instead go down and stay down there to this crippling extent, there's always this little voice between the lines there of, come on, pull yourself together. We all deal with this sort of thing. I will make the argument throughout here that depression is as real of a biological disorder as is juvenile diabetes. And you don't sit down a diabetic and say, oh, come on, what's with this insulin stuff? Stop babying yourself and pull it together. You will see this is just as much of a biological disorder.
Environment problems caused by hard rock mining involve water pollution by metals themselves, chemicals used in processing, acid drainage and sediment. Metals and metal-like elements in the ore are toxic and prone to cause trouble by ending up in nearby streams and water tables as a result of mining operations.
Working together, they figured out that if the government was going to propose some kinds of significant tax increases, which is a good strategy, require me to at least lie something like getting something for those big tax brackets, not seeing any results. So the result of that was in the package of legislation that included the tax increases. There was some awesome information to have significant expansion of coverage families where they can buy into their private insurance. Rebuilding carbon-rich agriculture soils is the only real productive, permanent solution to taking excess carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. She's frustrated that scientists and politicians don't see the same opportunities she sees. This year, Australia will emit just over 600 million tons of carbon. We can sequester 685 million tons of carbon by increasing soil carbon by 0.5% on only 2% of the farms. If we increased it on all of the farms, we could sequester the whole world's emissions of carbon.
Well, Alex, the National Association of Realtors is at least putting the champagne on ice. The industry group says the slight rise in sales for previously owned homes shows the housing market is finally stabilizing, which is the first sign of a recovery. Now, that of course is an interpretation of the numbers, Alex, and one that's coming from an organization known for being somewhat of a cheerleader for the housing market, since its members are made up of realtors who've been losing a lot of money in the slump. Now, for a more sober view, I talked to Wellesley housing economist Carl Case, and he says the slight uptick in sales hardly offsets the fact that numbers are down 20% from the year before.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Cynthia Graber. This'll just take a minute. When is an ant like a piece of fruit? When it's infected by a parasite. Researchers affiliated with the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute discovered this bizarre occurrence in Central America as they were studying the gliding ability of a certain species of ant. They found some colony members with bright red swollen abdomens. The scientists took specimens back to the lab and discovered they were full of hundreds of nematode eggs. The bright red bellies look suspiciously like the brilliant red and pink berries that proliferate in the rainforest. Researchers think that the nematode makes the ant look like fruit to get birds to eat the ants. Birds usually keep the ants off their menu because of armor and a bad chemical taste. The birds then spread parasite eggs in their droppings. Ants forage through bird droppings for seeds. They feed the infected droppings to ant larvae, beginning the infection process all over again. The red-bellied ant is the first known case of a parasite causing fruit mimicry. One of the researchers was surprised that something dumb as a nematode can manipulate its host in such a sophisticated way. But evolution works no matter how dumb organisms are. Thanks for the minute. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Cynthia Graber.
Parents today are more responsible for their children's education. The first commercial airport was built on the island relatively recently. Rising inflation means the increasing demand for consuming products. Time was needed to process complex topics of the lectures. At that time, few people moved from towns to villages. Participation rate in the study of language learning exceeded the expectations.
Research Institute discovered this bizarre occurrence in Central America as they were studying the gliding ability of a certain species of ant. They found some colony members with bright red swollen abdomens. The scientists took specimens back to the lab and discovered they were full of hundreds of nematode eggs. The bright red bellies look suspiciously like the brilliant red and pink berries that proliferate in the rainforest. Researchers think that the nematode makes the ant look like fruit to get birds to eat the ants. Birds usually keep the ants off their menu because of armor and a bad chemical taste.